I want to show you right now. This is Kathy Latham we're showing you. She's the former chairwoman of Coffee County GOP. Already under investigation, this woman is, for posing as one of those fake electors who signed documents that declared Donald Trump was the winner of the 2020 election. Latham can be seen here escorting a team of pro-Trump operatives into the Coffee County Elections Office, including an IT specialist who was working with Trump attorney Sidney Powell. This all happens on the same day the voting system in that office was illegally breached.
This is the Get To Free Press. I'm George Boston Rhines out of Valdosta, Georgia. And I find myself in Douglas and Coffee County this morning. They had a Board of Elections meeting, and I found two strangers over here today. But they're always on point. So what's your name?
Catherine Grant.
What's your name?
Kanisha Jones.
And who are you with?
Neat. Black Voters Matter.
All right. Who are you with?
Safe to Thrive, but we're a partner of Black Voters Matter.
All right. I came over here because I was asked to be here today. I wish that other people had called me. I didn't know it had gotten this hot over here in terms of meetings being held. I would have been here, but I'm going to put this priority one. So I would just want you to briefly explain what took place today and why did you do that presentation before the people here in Douglas and Coffee County today.
So we have been attending the Board of Elections meetings regularly, and the importance of that is that there has been no accountability in the Board of Elections itself and how they are working with a continuing security issue that was never fully investigated. Actually, 3 breaches of the election system here in Coffee County that took place. The first one starting on January 7th, which was the day after the insurrection at the Capitol. And also in following up day to day with what news is happening nationally. So we know that there are investigations happening at the federal level with Special Counsel Jack Smith, and also at the state level with Fani Willis. And we believe that the investigations and indictments will be forthcoming.
The state of Georgia and South Georgia in particular are now in the eyes of the federal government and the national level, and if not the international level. And so when I look at MSNBC, NBC, CBS, Dateline, Nightline, out of Atlanta, 11 Alive Action News, they all seem to be focused on Coffee County, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And so I have been and recorded in the Board of Elections here when Misty was the supervisor.
Oh my.
And so when you look back over the annals of this place and what OIVIA Coley Pearson have been through.
Yeah, that's right.
Will you say that you believe that something took place that was wrong?
I don't think there's any question about what happened was wrong. What is lingering and where we need the community support is in holding the folks accountable that walked into the Board of Elections on 3 different occasions in 2021, had access to voter files and the state election software, and copied it. We don't know at this point. We have no indication of any of the persons involved in that being held accountable. There have been no indictments at all.
Now, how long has it been? Approximately how long has it been? I heard, I think one commissioner here talking about the length of time that have elapsed with no, as you say, no accountability. What do you think about that? Or do you think anybody was going to pursue this, or they was hoping possibly that it's just going to blow into the wind and be ignored? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that that is the central question. And I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is how important public involvement is, and for everyone who's able to attend the Board of Elections meetings and learn about what happened, but more importantly, learn about the functioning of the Board of Elections systems here in Coffee County today, so that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. We really need the public's engagement and oversight in this process as well.
Okay, I have two final questions. One is, who was the gentleman that spoke today, and what organization or what does he represent? Because he spoke so eloquently on the issues. Who was he, and what do you know about him?
That's Mr. Jim Hudson, who has been in Coffee County since the late 80s and has lived here and practiced law here. He is here as a concerned citizen. He's not with any formal organization. He's a retired attorney. He's not practicing now, but was so concerned about what he learned that he wanted to dig deeper, and has been very instrumental in bringing to light the group of people that appeared to be at the center of this, and also in giving advice on how we can improve or fix the system.
Capable, competent new supervisor. And I hope you have your team in place by 2024, and that there is no criticism of our election system in 2024 as there has been. I hope that we can bring our county back. I hope that we can remove the blight that is on the county, because I continue to get newspaper people calling and newspaper articles sent to me that are derogatory. You all have been getting a message from a lady out in California, because she sends me copies. Stephanie Cation Flagg. And I've told you who she is before. Stephanie Cation Flagg is the daughter of Bob Cation. Some of you may have known Bob when he was alive and when they lived here. I did. I thought highly of him. He was a friend of mine. I did not know Stephanie. But she is telling you all how Coffee County is being viewed as far away as her home, which is on the West Coast. And she is pleading with you, as I am, please do things to help us make it better. We're behind you. We want to support our board. You're our neighbors. We don't want to fuss and fight. But we want something that's fair, and to the public will perceive and understand it's fair. So I thank you again for the time and the courtesy you've extended me. It's meant a lot to me, and thank you, Ben.
But one of the things that I just wanted to touch on quickly is, in contrast to what happened to Mayor Pro Tem OIVIA Cooley, who was arrested for allegedly doing something that she was later fully exonerated for. And that happened literally on the spot. For that to happen to her, and 2.5 years later, we have no accountability for the people who allowed this group to come in and essentially copy the state voter files is unconscionable.
680-1094. I again was doing what I do, talking to people everywhere I see them at. Hey, have you voted?
Ms. Pearson?
Yeah. Not everybody likes that I'm doing it.
Olivia Pearson's mother led the county's NAACP.
My mother sued the city of Douglas to get more representation on the city council.
After years of registration drives, Olivia became the first Black woman to win election to the council.
When I received the letter in 2016 from the Secretary of State signed by Brian Kemp.
Kemp used his power as head of the state election board to have Olivia charged with the felony crime of interfering with voters.
I could have served up to 5 years in prison. So it was very, very, very frightening. It was very depressing. I had to go and receive counseling to help me to cope with it. It was horrendous.
A jury quickly found her not guilty because, as it turned out, disabled voters had filled out the official forms requesting her help.
They had the handcuffs around my back, you know, my hands to the back. I couldn't get into the car with them like that. I was in excruciating pain.
The New York Times wrote that Olivia's case made Brian Kemp a pioneer of present-day voter suppression.
The young lady that I was with at the time, she told me, she said, "Miss Olivia, I don't even want to vote. After all of this, I don't want to vote anymore. I don't want to do it." And I had to beg her and explain to her that that's what they're doing it for, is to cause people to be afraid to exercise the right to vote.
Okay. Now, are you surprised at the lack of what I think possibly should have been more local news media coverage at this high-profile meeting?
Yes, but I think that that's one of the reasons why, one reason among many reasons why this kind of thing happened in Coffee County, because we have limited access to statewide or national media, and we're sort of in a little sort of zone where the only media that we can access is local media, and oftentimes local media are pressured politically not to report on certain things. So it is disappointing, but it's not surprising, and this is something we see all over South Georgia.
Okay, this is the last question I'm going to ask. I probably asked you before. What makes you do what you do? What makes you be where you be?
Neighborhood she wrote.
And why you just don't quit?
Neighborhood she wrote.
Because our vote, access to the ballot box, has come at a high price, number one, and still does, and is the core of our form of self-governance. So anything that threatens that is a threat to our way of life, our freedoms, and that's why.
And what's your name once again?
Catherine Grant.
And what's your name?
Kanisha Jones.
And who are you with?
Black Voters Matter.
Safe to Thrive, Black Voters Matter.
Thank you very much. This is to Get to Free Press. I'm George Foster Rhymes, and we report what others ignore about our...
That part.
10 years or more.
Absolutely. They want to put us under the jail. It stinks of desperation, and it seeps through everything that they do, and it often comes along with the threat of violence. We are talking about a Secretary of State that went after college students. They raided a voter registration office and tried to send all of these college kids to jail. and came against them with criminal actions, right? And the penalty for what they call voter registration fraud in Georgia, it carries with it a penalty of up to $10,000 in fines and 10 years in prison per form.
From his very first year as Georgia's voting chief, Brian Kemp literally ordered armed seizures. He sent the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Georgia's own version of the FBI, to Quitman, Georgia, to arrest 10 newly elected members of the school board. The first black members on the board, arresting teachers, including 2 PhDs. Kemp accused them of stuffing tampered ballots into mailboxes. That same old accusation as in 2000 Mules. Kemp had them paraded in handcuffs and orange suits like they were terrorists at Guantanamo. Local journalist George Boston Rhines has closely tracked the case.
I'm George Boston Rhines, and I'm in Quitman, Georgia. And I am immediately, just got down here. These are the Quitman 10. This is what I do.
After 4 years of prison over their heads, the Quitman 10 were acquitted of every charge.
So much stress was on those people. Lula Smart even considered taking her own life.
With all the indictment that I had, in my mind, I thought, well, if I just commit suicide, this will be over.
Another suffered from lupus.
Latasha Head, she died, and I interviewed her father, and he said that he believed that his daughter's death was a result of the stress and pressure brought about by Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp.
Rhines explained that the persecution of the Quitman 10 brought up traumatic memories of the lynching of 12 black men in 1918, what is called the Week of Terror. When Mary Turner raised her voice about the execution of her husband by vigilantes, they came after her.
Oh, wow.
Where are we? Can you tell me what we're about to do?
This is the old Brooks County Jail. This is where all of the equipment, and this is where all of the men that were arrested during that Week of Terror in May of 18 would have been housed in this jail before they was lynched. This is my first time ever coming into this place. I've heard some horror stories about this place. In May of 1918, Mary Turner was lynched. They took her, she was 9 months pregnant, turned her upside down, riddled her body with bullets. A white mob member took a hog knife, ripped over her abdomen, and out fell an 8-month-old fetus. And when that fetus fell to the ground, the white mob member took the heel of his boot and crushed that baby's head.
Even today, the memory of Mary Turner is a political battlefield. The plaque commemorating her was shot up so often, it had to be removed.
Newly obtained video to CNN shows a former Georgia Republican county official escorting 2 operatives hired by an attorney for former President Trump into the county's election offices on the same day a voting system there was illegally breached. Drew Griffin has the details. Drew.
Breaches of these voting machines, guys, in swing states are under investigation across the country. This one happened in Coffee County, Georgia, rural county. CNN obtained surveillance video at one of the offices where the voting machines were breached, and all this at the behest of one of Donald Trump's attorneys. I want to show you right now. This is Kathy Latham we're showing you. She's the former chairwoman of Coffee County GOP. Already under investigation, this woman is, for posing as one of those fake electors who signed documents that declared Donald Trump was the winner of the 2020 election. Latham can be seen here escorting a team of pro-Trump operatives into the Coffee County Elections Office, including an IT specialist who was working with Trump attorney Sidney Powell. This all happens on the same day the voting system in that office was illegally breached. January 7th, 2021, the day after the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Text messages, emails, and witness testimony from a civil lawsuit against Georgia election officials have connected Latham, that woman, to the plan to give the group access to the elections office. About a week before this voting machine breach, that same woman, Latham, testified before the Georgia state legislature, along with Rudy Giuliani, talking all about voter machine irregularities in Coffee County. Latham's attorney told CNN in a statement that Ms. Latham has not acted improperly or illegally, and Ms. Latham did not authorize or participate in ballot scanning efforts, computer imaging, or any similar activity. The IT specialist firm says it had no reason to believe he was doing anything wrong either. One important note, Coffee County, where this happened, is a Republican stronghold. Donald Trump won this county with 70% of the vote, but you can see from that video there that the Trump-connected team wanted to and was able to get access to that election office.
And as you said, Drew, this isn't the only place this kind of thing is happening.
This was happening in breaches of voting machines in several other states, and at least one of the breaches, Brianna, in Michigan, we can connect to what happened in Georgia. It all points to this plan to try to overturn the results of the 2020 election. But look at all the things they've done, all the digging they've done, all the voting machines they've tried to penetrate. None of it has shown any of this evidence that they think exists out there, you know, that this was somewhat of an illegitimate election. Joe Biden won this election, and they just could not accept that.
So, Drew, what's going on with the investigation into all of this?
Well, there are various state investigations. The Michigan Secretary of State told me last week that she's handed over her state's evidence to the Department of Justice. They have not heard back. It's an incredible, intricate story. You know, Zach Cohen and Jason Morris, two of our crack investigative reporters in D.C., have just posted a big story online with a lot more details on this. Incredible stuff. If you want to follow along, or guys, read about it in the history books in like 10 years from now.
Yeah, follow along now. You'll be well prepared for when you read it in the history books. Drew Griffin, terrific reporting. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Joining me now, CNN political analyst and senior political correspondent of the New York Times, Maggie Haberman, and CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Jennifer Rogers. There's a lot in there, Drew's report. First of all, we're talking about January 7th. We're talking about the day after the insurrection. This is still going on, even after everything that happened on January 6th.
It fits with other pieces that we know, John, which is that John Eastman, the lawyer who was the architect of this idea that Mike Pence could unilaterally reject the Electoral College votes on January 6th, continued pressing in Georgia, actually. He wanted to continue investigating in Georgia. So it's not surprising that there are other people who shared his views who were continuing. But the detail of this is really what's stunning. And I have to say, this is one of the first times that I think there has been a clear roadmap presented in one of these stories about machines being either a breach or something tampered with potentially, where you can connect the dots between players across the spectrum in this entire issue, and it's a fascinating report.
It is, and I have to say, more to come, I am sure. So
It's better to do them separately, just in case there's any changes. June 6th.
Said each of the minutes need to be motion separately.
Approved, so motion to approve the June 6th minutes.
So moved.
Matthew. Is there a second? Second is Paul Bryson. Matthew, motion, second is Paul. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approval of the June 6th minutes, please signify by raising your hand. Are there any opposed? No opposed, and so those minutes are approved. Right now, consider the June 20th minutes. Do you need more time to read that? Okay, motion, this is separately approving the June 20th minutes, so motion to approve the June 20th minutes. Andy,
Second.
and second Matthew. Motion Andy, second Matthew. Is there any discussion on those June 20th minutes? In favor, please signify by raising your hand, please. And so, are there any opposed? None opposed, so motion carries. Minutes for both rooms are approved. All right, now, in your packet, you'll see the budget through May 31st, 2023. Board members, we submit this for your consideration, and certainly are welcome to review it and ask any questions.
Period. So, and we have bigger elections next year.
Absolutely, and we can work with Wesley on
Yeah, just a suggestion, kind of thought for the future.
And
because we're also paying more than we used to, so I think that's part of it.
yes. Okay, so I don't think that requires
No.
that requires any motion.
It's just a kind of
So we're going to move on from that then and to number 7, supervisor updates, Ms. Rachel Roberts.
We just have normal activities going on as in registering individuals to vote or updating their addresses. Christy is supposed to be going next month for additional LNA training. So the state is putting that on. And then qualifying for City of Douglas and Broxton elections will be August 21st through the 23rd. That's a Monday through Wednesday, 8:30 to 4:30.
Why don't you just explain what is LNA training?
LNA is logic and accuracy of the voting machines. It's something that's done before every election on the machines. And so this is a hands-on course that all individuals that works in the elections office goes to the state and they train.
So that happens for every election.
The logic and accuracy, it happens for every election.
And it's open to the public.
Right.
Okay. All right. And I just mention that because everybody might not know that, but
yes, sir.
the machines they're checked for every election to make sure what the voter's intent is the number that comes out correctly. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, now, let's go ahead and announce what we were talking about on the absences. I mean, you notified me that on Friday afternoon, you and Christy will need to be absent from your positions.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that all the board members are aware that on Friday afternoon, you would be out of the office and that, I mean, we only have 2-person staff, and so so our normal procedure is that whenever that happens, we put a note on the board that says contact the county commissioner's office, and if you have any need to speak to someone, you can do that. And if you need to register to vote, they can assist you with that there.
Yes, sir.
And so that is taken care of. And that has worked well for us in the past to
Yes,
do
sir.
that. Okay. I said, board members, I just wanted you to be aware of that on Friday afternoon. This is for this coming up Friday, July 14th. Is that correct? And so, all right, any additional updates, Rachel?
That's it.
Right, thank you. Now, we'll move to number 8. Consideration to adopt a policy regarding meeting norms. Now, this meeting norms, I don't know if you call it a contract or a policy. It's a policy, I guess. It's noted as a policy. And so, Mr. Lee, do you want to explain that again? I mean, I know you explained it last time, but would you like to just address that, what that is, and why it's beneficial to have it?
Yes, sir, and I'll be quick because we talked about it at the last meeting, but you know, it's food for thought for the board to consider to govern the conduct of its meetings. And I thought the last meeting, the meeting ran smoothly, well effectively. I felt like you followed this policy, although it hadn't been adopted, you know, because we had 5-minute limits on those speakers. Mr. Hudson was given additional time, which is within, you know, certainly within the board's purview, but that's the general concept. So item B has a 5 minutes speaking time. You know, you may like the idea of having a time limit, but you may prefer more or less. That might be something for you to consider. And then also, I think I mentioned this last time, is that some boards like to limit public comments to agenda items, and this one does not do that, but that might be something you may wish to modify. Can I answer any questions?
Any questions for Ben? Thank you, Mr. Ben. And now I call board members. Okay, so this is an agenda item, and so I would entertain a motion concerning this policy.
I move that we adopt this policy for board meetings.
All right.
Second.
Okay. Motion, Ms. Paula. Second, Matthew. Okay. Is there any discussion? Board members in favor, please raise your hand if you're in favor. All right. Board members opposed? Okay, so we can record it as not unanimous. One board member opposed, but decisions require a quorum. A quorum is 3 commissioners, 3 members, and so that policy is adopted. Okay, so we will move on then. Now, okay, number 9, Jim Hudson and Mrs. Grant. So is Mr. Grant here?
I haven't seen it.
Now this is somewhat, I mean, what, Mr. Hudson, did you ask to present with Ms. Grant, or is this 2 separate presentations?
2 separate things.
This is actually 2 separate presentations. Okay, well, I just want to get that straight out. And so now, okay, I want to say this, and please go to the podium. But we want to offer some discussion right here for just a minute. And you are on the agenda, and you will be allowed to speak. I'd like to make the board aware of an email that you sent to me. Well, you sent it anyway. And so in that email, I respectfully request unlimited time to make remarks. That was your request of us. And so, board members, that is his request. Now, it is my feeling and my belief that Mr. Hudson has come with important information. And while I'm not making a motion, I just want to say that we appreciate the time you put in on this and the information that you're bringing. But as you know, your amount of time is, I mean, I just don't think 5 minutes is sufficient. And so I want to hear from the board. Will someone please place a motion and let's discuss Mr. Hudson's time. How much time? Yes, ma'am. Have the amount of time that he's going to do. Yes, excuse me. Well, he asked for unlimited remarks. He asked for unlimited remarks. Is that the motion you're placing? Okay, so Ms. Ernestine has placed a motion asking for unlimited time for Mr. Hudson's presentation. Is there a second? The motion dies for lack of a second. We would entertain another motion.
I would make the motion that we give Mr. Hudson 30 minutes.
30 minutes. All right, it's been proposed by Ms. Paula, 30 minutes. Is there a second? I second. I'm going to second that. And now, is there any discussion?
How long do you think it will take? Probably about 15 minutes, maybe 20. Just wanted some leeway because, excuse me, almost.
If you get 30 minutes, you may not take the whole 30 minutes.
No, y'all have to. I try to come organized, but my experience has been when you put it in a 5-minute or a 10-minute frame, it rushes you and you really end up doing a poor job.
Is there additional discussion? Board members in favor of allowing 30 minutes for Mr. Hudson, please signify by raising your right hand. I mean, you don't have to be your right hand, but, all right, so let me see. Andy, Paula, and me. Okay, so we're going to say that motion. Is there any opposed? 2 opposed, so 3 in favor, 2 opposed. And so that motion carries, and so Mr. Hudson, you have 30 minutes. So, Mr. Ben, are you retiring?
Yes, sir, I'll do that.
And thank you for doing that. And so, Mr. Hudson, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for the additional time and for the opportunity to be here again, once again this morning. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, within the last few days have received some important and unfortunate information which I felt I should make all of you aware. I've been informed that efforts have been made to intimidate certain individuals who have generally expressed support for efforts being made and reflected generally in the contents of the resolution which I submitted to the board. These intimidation efforts were primarily directed at the individuals in connection with their employment. That is, they were let know that their employment might be in jeopardy if they persisted in expressing any support for the ideas reflected in the resolution. I personally have been very concerned that such conduct might arise. I hope we can all agree that such conduct is wrong and should not in any way be condoned. I urge all of you to give consideration to this very serious concern and to discourage it whenever possible. The folks who were approached are simply hardworking citizens in our county who have an opinion and have the right to express that opinion. They should not be threatened in any fashion. I cannot express to you or tell you how unfortunate I find these developments, and I do not want to lead you to believe that the intimidation is widespread. I do not know the extent. On the other hand, it has arisen, and I hope we will all do our best to encourage democratic debate in the hope of solving this very difficult situation and encourage our citizens to respect their fellow citizens and their opinions. While I'm hesitant to do so, I would like all of you to give thought to the idea that because of the conduct of a small group of our citizens, our county and state has suffered hundreds of thousands of dollars in monetary damages.
Excuse me.
Our state's election system has been breached, the largest voting system breach in the nation's history. And now we find we have our citizens being intimidated simply because they have an opinion that says they cannot support such actions. Again, I urge all to respect the opinions of our fellow citizens and to discourage such conduct. I would also like to observe that perhaps sometimes individuals who participate in this type of conduct take the silence of government officials to be the approval of what has taken place. So I think one of the reasons I've been urging that we do something to move forward and to speak up is to overcome that problem. Information surrounding the breaches has been available for over 2.5 years, and to my knowledge, the first time that a concession was made when a breach may have occurred is when our chairman, during the last meeting. During the most recent meeting of the Board of Elections, the chairman read a statement in which, if I understand correctly, he acknowledged there were things that occurred in our elections office during January 2021, but laid the blame primarily on Misty Hampton. It should be pointed out that as late as the May meeting, the chairman refused to even acknowledge there was a breach, declared they were not that the board was not investigators and had no ability to investigate, and we would all just have to wait until the G.B.R. report. When he was asked why the change in his story, he simply declared at the last meeting, we have a new lawyer. The chairman sought to have a statement approved, his statement, at the last meeting. Unfortunately, it was not, as in my opinion, it is defective in many ways. The statement, which was not approved, shows us at least 3 things. It is not an accurate assessment of the events that have occurred, and there appears to be a certain bias associated with the statement, which will become more evident as we look at some photographs in just a minute. Secondly, it demonstrates the need for independent counsel. Thirdly, it demonstrates flaws in the way that the Board of Board of Elections actually operates. A statement, and what I mean by that is the statement that was read by the chairman, it seems to me should have been something that should have been developed in conference or in a meeting with the rest of the board. And that did not happen. These things seem to occur with the board. That is, unilateral action is taken, and then it's sought to be condoned or approved after it's been taken. By that I mean, for instance, the engaging of a new attorney. I don't think a board meeting was ever held by this board to discuss that, although I think it may come in the future at some time. The same was true with the statement. I'm not aware of any meeting that was held to approve the statement that was actually read. The problem, of course, the chairman announced that it was his personal statement. Unfortunately, the statement was published in the newspaper. So now it's out there in the public. Now you've got to undo that statement to clarify things if another statement is forthcoming from the full board. The statement is it an accurate assessment is one of the first things. And that's why it's important to have independent counsel. You want an accurate assessment, unbiased, so that nobody can criticize you or anyone else. You have an independent person making independent determinations. The chairman lays primarily blame in his statement on Misty Hampton for intruders who had access to the election system in Coffee County. So I brought some pictures with me. I'm going to pass these out, and I'll talk to you about them as we go through them. The question is Misty Hampton the primary mover? So let's look at the pictures and see who was present and who was participating. I won't necessarily go into names, but I will refer to the individuals. If you look at and I won't necessarily cover all the pictures. If you look at the first picture on the left, I think we all know who that is, leading Scott Hall and his helper through the door. And I've explained, I don't know how many times in emails and other places, who Scott Hall was. He's the bail bondsman that was hired to come down from Atlanta, flew in here with his helper, downloaded and took whatever information he wanted out of the election system and went back to Atlanta. There's the lady in the front there, who's the head of the GOP at the time. Misty Hampton is not in that picture, but those individuals were being led into the building by the lady in blue. Now, let me stop just a minute while I'm thinking about it and explain a little bit more about what I'm going to go ahead and use her name, what I understand about Kathy Latham. Kathy Latham is now has been involved in Fulton County as a fake elector, as I understand it. I'm telling you what I understand. Kathy Latham at the time was the head of the GOP party here in Coffee County. What most people don't realize, and I didn't realize until lately, was that Kathy Latham, at the time this was going on, was represented by Sidney Powell in a case pending in the Supreme Court. That's the Supreme Court of the United States of America. That case was filed by Sidney Powell with Kathy Latham being one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. So while she was coming down and taking people into our elections office, she was also working with Sidney Powell in a case in Supreme Court, and was also coordinating getting $26,000 to Sullivan Strickler so that they could be hired to come down and go in and do whatever they wanted to in the Office of Elections here. That's my understanding. That's my understanding of the facts. I think you also bear in mind that while the lawsuit was going on, and there is a certificate of service and certificate of compliance on here. This thing in the Supreme Court of the United States of America was dated December the 11th, 2020. You've heard me, and I recently sent you a copy of the Still lawsuit. The Still lawsuit was verified or signed on December the 12th. So you had all of these things going on at one time. Still lawsuit on the 12th. You had the lawsuit filed by Sidney Powell, in which Kathy Latham participated on the 11th. Eventually, these things were dismissed. The people from Sullivan Strickler were hired and paid by Sidney Powell, who was Kathy Latham's lawyer, the lady that appears in the picture. And so we can move on to the next picture on the right there. I think you know some of those people in that picture. One is a former board member, one is a former chairman of this board, and then there are members of the Sullivan Strickler firm that came down and basically did what they wanted to in the election system. Additionally, on the next two photographs, you'll see Misty, another Sullivan Strickler person. Then there's another person that is in the very corner with his feet propped up. And if you will look at the picture up in the right-hand corner, you'll be able to tell who that is. Also, at the next picture, there is Mr. Hall again, one of the Sullivan Strickler guys, I believe, and Misty. If you look at the next one, you'll see the similar people in the elections office looking and dealing with equipment they should not be looking and dealing with. And no one is asking them to leave, including the former board member, our former chairman, the present board member, the gentleman standing there with the camo was a board member at the time. On the next picture, you have, again, former board member, former chairman of the board, Misty, her helper, and nobody seems to be asking anybody to leave the premises. On the next one on the left, you'll see Misty and a member of one of the teams doing whatever he wants to do on that particular device. Next, you'll see Misty escorting some people out the door on another occasion. You will see the people being escorted out. That was not on January the 7th, 2021. That was on another date. She's escorting them out. Now, I might point out there's text messages between the former board member, not the former board member, or not the former chairman, text messages between the former board member and Misty that cover both of the latter intrusions. It's not just the first intrusion, but the latter two intrusions are documented by text messages between the former board member and Misty. In the next photograph, you'll see there a board member who was present and who was a board member at the time talking to Scott Hall. He's certainly not asking him to leave. He's certainly not insisting that this is an area that he should not be in. You see on the right-hand side again, Misty is bringing Scott Hall and one of his employees into the building. On the bottom left, you will see members of Sullivan Strickland, Misty, Scott Hall, former board member. Again, there's Kathy Latham in the next picture, the lady who is represented at this time by Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell paid $26,000 to get Sullivan Strickland to come down here and to do whatever they wanted to do. That did not include Scott Hall, as I understand it. Again, I'm telling you what I understand the facts to be. On the next page, you will see a lady in pink who, as I understand it, is an employee of Sullivan Strickland, and the door is being held open, not by Misty, but by Kathy Latham. The next picture again shows the former board chairman, former board member, Misty, and I believe that's Mr. Hall standing there. The next one on the bottom left, you'll see Misty and one of the Sullivan Strickland people hugging, and then you will see the former board chairman standing in the door, certainly not urging them to leave or asking them to get out as I can interpret that. It's a very casual and friendly atmosphere, it seems to me. Again, on the right-hand corner, you'll see some of the same people again, including the former board member, Misty, and some Scott Hall, along with some Sullivan Strickler employees. I believe that's who they are, along maybe with an employee of Scott Hall. On the next picture, you'll see Scott Hall and Misty shaking hands, as I think he's probably getting ready to leave there. Again, on the next page, you will see Kathy Latham, not Misty Hampton, holding open the door, and I would say welcoming the people into the building. The next picture is simply two members who were served on the board. One is the chairman, one is the former board member there in the building, and then you have Kathy Latham there by herself. It's important when a report is initiated in this case, and if an independent counsel is ever retained, that an assessment of the roles of the people involved in this matter be determined. It needs to be determined what caused our system to break down. What caused and what allowed these people to be able to take over an elections building and basically do what they wanted to do. What were the defects in our system that created this, and how can we prevent it in the future? In addition to that, there needs to be addressed what can be done in the future to make sure this never happens again. What precautions can be taken? I understand what the chairman says about, two of the people are gone and that sort of thing, but I think it goes deeper than that. What were the cause? What caused this to happen? What breakdown occurred where blatantly, excuse my hyperbole, blatantly and seemingly without any concern, you had people go into our election system and do whatever they wanted to do. The other thing that the statement demonstrates, that the chairman prepared, is it demonstrates flaws in our system. Major decisions, such as an adoption of something as important as a public statement on the breaches of January 2021, should be something decided and approved by the entire board. Instead, the chairman in this case, as I understand it, took it upon himself to have the statement prepared and published, and then eventually was published as his statement, as it did not receive board approval. A major decision, as I mentioned earlier in my comments, such as retaining a counsel for the board, needs to be something, in my opinion, that the board meets, talks about, and makes when everybody's present and has an opportunity to provide input and an opportunity to vote. I have recently learned that Mrs. Roberts is leaving. She will be missed. She has treated me with kindness and respect. But this will be 3 election supervisors that our county has had in, I think, about 2.5 years. If I were an employer, such as Mr. McCullough, I think you probably would feel the same way. If I had that high a turnover, I would be concerned. What is the problem? And I'm going to say this, it's almost a subjective observation, but I believe it to be true. Election systems are going to be some of the most important things in this county in the future, because everybody is watching. And everybody, believe me, is going to be watching Coffee County, because everybody has information out there. As I understand it, yesterday there was Atlanta Journal-Constitution down here talking to people about this situation. And I was in the store this morning. This man said, "Jim, this is not going away." I don't know whether it's going away or not, but I know one thing: they're going to be watching. So what we need is, what are we doing that these employees want to leave? Why did Mr. Barnes want to leave? Why does our president lady want to leave? I know why Misty left, obviously, but it seems like we have a high turnover rate when we need stability in our voting system. We need somebody that is smart, that knows what they're doing, and that will stick with us. And we need to make sure that happens. Going back to the importance, your role is going, in my opinion, to be crucial in the future, because you are making important decisions, and the focus is on voting like it's never been in my lifetime, as far as getting it right, dealing with the technicalities, knowing what you're doing. When you move systems, you have to have supposedly the written permission of the Secretary of State. I thought about that when we were talking about moving this building and moving the equipment in this building. Did we get permission from the Secretary of State to move this? Written permission. Those are the kind of things, those technicalities, those T's are going to have to be crossed, the I's dotted, and you're going to have capable personnel. I say that out of the deepest respect and concern for just getting somebody that's good, capable, and making this system work and making our county proud, reassuring the people, yeah, we know what we're doing, and you're going to be treated fairly, and this is going to be right. As I listened to the failure of the resolution at the last meeting, as you know, the main purpose of the last meeting was to consider the resolution which I had presented to the board, the primary goal of which is to retain an independent counsel for the purpose of reviewing all the facts, reporting his findings, including what led to the problem, also to ensure all steps necessary that have to be taken to cure the initial problems and to recommend actions to be taken in the future, and to ensure that this is never repeated. The reasons, as I understand, for the objections from the audience primarily was two things: the cost, and we have the G.B.R. involved. We have discussed that, I don't know, numerous times among ourselves about these two objections, and the lack of merit in either one. First of all, when they talk about costs, the truth of the matter is nobody knows the cost, because nobody's made an effort to find out what the costs are, number one. Number two, it may be a situation where a pro bono law firm, and there are good ones, would do it for free, but we haven't even looked into that possibility. So say that the costs are a problem when we don't even know what the costs are, when there's a possibility of a pro bono firm involved. When we then, after I started talking about getting independent counsel and making a report, we bring in a lawyer who's a very capable lawyer. That's not a criticism of Mr. Perkins. But it's not independent counsel. He represents the board, and the board may have issues that the independent counsel needs to address, and he will not be free to do that if he's representing you, obviously. So the cost of the FBI, neither of these reasons are justified. We don't even know the cost. And again, but you know what I also noticed? Something else which may have had an impact on whether the resolution passed. The board never read the resolution when it was proposed, that I recall. Not only did they not read it, they did not read it, if I recall correctly, when it was presented. It was never discussed, the contents of the resolution, the pros and the cons. Not that I recall, no. Sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times I forget things. So that I may be in error there, but I do not recall it ever being read. I don't ever recall it being discussed. In speaking with one gentleman after the meeting, and who spoke concerning costs, he said he had never read the resolution, didn't know what was in it. We offered him a copy. He said he didn't need it. End of conversation. I hope that at some point, the board will once again entertain the resolution which I have presented. I believe it's fair. I believe it's reasonable. I believe it affords us a way to bring this matter to a conclusion. I believe that we can afford it. I don't believe you can expect a G.B.R. report coming into this committee telling us how to conduct our security business and how to conduct our election board. They're not going to do that. They don't do that kind of stuff. Their business is putting people in jail. Criminal investigation, that's their goal. That's what they do. I believe the people, if you decide on independent legal counsel, will support you. And I know that I will. I want to thank you, members of the board, for allowing me to speak and allowing me this extra time. It's the first time, I don't mean this as a criticism, it's the first time I've had the liberty of really being able to speak without rushing. And when I keep coming back to this, there'll be a few on this board who understand it. But as you get older, it gets harder to rush. So I do thank you. I hope that as we move forward that you will be guided by some of the things I've said. I hope that we can have an independent counsel who will come in and will treat everybody fairly, will give a fair evaluation, and will provide us with things that we need to do to make our system better. I hope that we get a very capable and competent new supervisor. And I hope you have your team in place by 2024, and that there is no criticism of our election system in 2024 as there has been. I hope that we can bring our county back. I hope that we can remove the blight that is on the county, because I continue to get newspaper people calling and newspaper articles sent to me that are derogatory. You all have been getting a message from a lady out in California, because she sends me copies, Stephanie Cation Flagg. And I've told you who she is before. Stephanie Cation Flagg is the daughter of Bob Cation. Some of you may have known Bob when he was alive and when they lived here. I did. I thought highly of him. He was a friend of mine. I did not know Stephanie, but she is telling you all how Coffee County is being viewed as far away as her home, which is on the West Coast. And she is pleading with you, as I am, please do things to help us make it better. We're behind you. We want to support our board. You're our neighbors. We don't want to fuss and fight. But we want something that's fair, and to the public will perceive and understand it's fair. So I thank you again for the time and the courtesy you've extended me. It's meant a lot to me, and thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now Ms. Grant is here now, and she is on Ms. Grant, you are on the agenda. And so if you will, please step to the podium. And so before you begin, I mean, are we in agreement that Ms. Grant can be allowed 30 minutes as well? I mean, do we need to vote separately on that? I know that you have, at least two of you have jobs that you need to go to, but the important information is too important for us to not give time to it. I mean, I just feel that way. And so, does that require a motion, Ben?
Yes, sir, you need to have a motion to vote.
Okay, so let's do
Before we do, how long do you think you need?
I was just gonna say, not long. I didn't know about a possible 30 minutes, or I would have taken that time, but I won't be more than 5.
Well, I mean, we voted to give Ms. Hudson 30 minutes, and since you're a presenter, I mean, we felt, but you understand the time that we're under here, and so motion, somebody offer a motion, please.
You said you think 5 minutes?
That's correct.
So let's say 10 to give her plenty of time.
Okay, motion.
I would make a motion to give Ms. Grant 10 minutes.
Motion by Matthew to give 10 minutes. Motion second by Andy. Is there any discussion?
Is that comfortable for you?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All right. Are there any opposed? Motion is unanimous, and so
Ms. Grant, please proceed.
Thank you. I apologize for being late. My Waze GPS got confused, and so it was circling around. I want to first start by affirming everything that Mr. Hudson has said. I have seen over the course of the past hearings how diligent he has been in presenting the information factually and with a substantial amount of research to contextualize the facts that he has presented to this group. So any inference that there were any misrepresentations or falsehoods in anything that Mr. Hudson has said is wrong. My question to the board is, after a series of informative sessions by Mr. Hudson, who has presented information, what is the board going to do with the information that has been presented? How is the board going to respond to the very serious breaches that took place that only until the last meeting on June 20th did the board even acknowledge had taken place, some 2 years after the fact? So I'll double back to my first question to the board, which is, what are the steps that the board is taking to inform the public and to instill trust in this board and the running of our elections here in Coffee County? Would any member like to answer that question?
Just as a reminder, that would be out of order to do that. But after the public comment period is over, the board would be in position to respond to any questions or comments offered by the public.
I'm sorry, can you explain that again, Ben? You said that this is out of order, and how is that out of order?
In order to comply with the bylaws and the procedures that the board is supposed to follow, the board is not supposed to engage in a back and forth with public comments. They can choose to deviate from that, but it would be proper, if the board member did that, it'd be proper for the chairman to gavel them out of order and just to remind them that they can respond to your questions in just a moment when on item 11 on the agenda.
I see. So hopefully that question will be responded to later in the meeting today. I'll just conclude my comments by saying that as you all know well, what happened here has been characterized in some places as the largest breach in U.S. history. The weight of that, I think, calls for immediate action, taking full responsibility for what happened, regardless of who was on the board at the time or not. And to ensure that this doesn't happen again by a thoroughly reviewed process, not only beginning on January 7th of 2021, but up until today and moving forward. And in the spirit of democracy that affects all of us, regardless of political party. So I again ask that the board take action, that the board review the resolution presented by Mr. Hudson with respect because it took time and consideration for him to author it. I think it deserves at least somebody to read it and to put it before the board for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Okay, so we're entering into number 10 on our agenda, the public comment section. And if you have a copy of the agreement, the policy that we adopted today, you do have 5 minutes. Mr. Ben, if you will be the timekeeper, please. And we'll just do first come, first served. And if you will please approach the podium. Larry, if you'd like to do first.
Larry D. Smith, 877 MJ McClellan Road, Douglas, Georgia. First and foremost, my first thing is I want to apologize specifically to Mr. McCullough. I think I stirred it up when I said at last meeting that about the about when I said about the people making the Fifth Amendment. Man, I was not talking specifically about you, but I was talking about our past board member. And it's not too late to say that I can't call his name. Mr. Eric Taney did plead the fifth well over 200 times. It was not you. So I'm sorry if you thought that I was talking about you. Okay, so please, if you will, take my apology. Okay, but it was not you. It was Mr. Eric Taney. And he was a member of the board, and we as citizens has read the deposition to where he pleaded the fifth well over 200 times. Why? We don't know. Evidently it was something to hide. The second thing is I want to say I have worked with Ms. Rachel for the past 2 years in elections. Every election, me and this lady worked together. And she has done an excellent job for this board. Excellent job. I don't want her to go. And I don't know how the board feels, but I ask y'all guys to hold on to her because I don't know if we're gonna get somebody else that's gonna be as well as her. So if she goes, she's gonna be surely missed. So Rachel, if you do, I hope you have great blessings wherever you go, because you did a wonderful job. You really did. None of this stuff that goes on was because of you. And I can say that from the bottom of my heart. She did a wonderful job. So now my third thing I want to ask the board, and nothing against you, Ms. Grace, I think you're one man. I don't know you, but I think you're a good man. But board, what is the purpose of Mr. Perkins? Why was he hired? Is he here to do the protocol of the board, or he's the attorney for the breach? I don't understand. We had, Mr. Wells as the attorney, so if you will, at the end of this, when you do your turn, can you explain to us as a citizen of the Coffee County, what is Mr. Perkins' job? Could you explain to us, what is your job? Just as, okay, I am now the Board of Election attorney, my job is to do what? Is you here because of the breach? Or is you here to do Robert Rules of Order? What is your job title? What is you here to do? Because I want to know, what your job title is. And I'm going to say, board, I still love you. You know what I'm saying? We got a lot of things to work out, but we still on the same page. Y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please approach the podium if the other committees for public comments. Public comments? Anyone? No additional public comments? All right. And so now, are there no more public comments? And so we're going to move into the questions and comments by the board. And so questions and comments by the board. And so would you like me to go first, or would you like for me to go first? And so, now, while the policy that we have established, it eliminates engagement. It eliminates, and I'm just gonna say it in a good old boy kind of way, it eliminates arguing. That's good. That helps us have a much more effective meeting. And so I want to, there are some things that I would like to say in relation to, of course, Mr. Hudson's very thorough comments and Larry, to what you had to say as well. And so I'm just going to say about that statement, no, the board did not know that I was about to get up and acknowledge what has been reported in the media. No, the board did not know that. We've been accused falsely of meeting secretly and doing things behind your back that did not happen. That is an example. The board did not approve that statement. I mean, maybe they don't agree with what was in there, but they didn't know that I was about to get up and do that. They did not know that because we had not met secretly. And so I'm going to be honest with you. I was deeply embarrassed when they wouldn't approve my statement, but they'd never seen it. And so, Mr. Hudson, and we're going to have to agree to disagree, but every word of that statement is the truth as I knew it that day, and it is the truth as I know it this day. And every word of that statement is the truth as I know it. And no, they didn't have any input into it, and I didn't want them to have any input into it because I didn't want us to be subjected to additional scrutiny. That, okay, well, Stone, here you are, you've met with these people, and now you're all saying this. Okay, well, no, they had the opportunity to decline it, and they did, and it is my statement. And so, now, Mr. Hudson, you sent, I don't remember what day, what you sent us stuff quite often, thank you. And you sent reference, and I'm just asking about a letter that you referenced that was written with input from the former election supervisor and the former board member. Okay, do you have a copy of that letter?
From Mr. Barnes, or
from Mr. Hudson? Mr. Hudson referenced the letter that Misty was instructed to write from Eric. Am I correct, sir?
I think that's right, yeah.
And, I mean, I have not seen that letter.
I don't think I have.
And, Mr. Hudson, respectfully, do you have a copy of that letter?
I don't with me, sorry.
I mean, is it in your evidence? It is, you do have evidence.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you see, that might be something that would help us understand more if we had it. And so, as I'm aware of, our attorneys don't have that. And so, that's just an example of something wrong with the side. And now, okay, so, Larry, why is Mr. Ben Perkins here? Well, Mr. Ben Perkins, I mean, if you looked at some of the previous videos, you can see that we have flaws when it comes to the proper conduct of a meeting. And he has already helped us so much. And so, Mr. Perkins, thank you for doing that. And I like this form of meeting much better than I like the way we used to do it, okay? And so, thank you for explaining that. But, of course, Robert's Rules of Order, it is extremely important that all decisions made by this committee are done in the open sunshine. That's why it's called the Sunshine Law. It's the Open Meetings Law. He's an expert on that. And so has provided help with that. And so thank you for doing that. And I'm not, Mr. Hudson, I'm not fussing with you at all. And you accuse us of not reading your emails. I read every one of your emails.
Thank you.
I'm not speaking, now please understand, I'm not speaking for everyone else. I read everything you send. And you just were given 30 minutes right there. And you could very likely have said, here's my resolution. I have spent a lot of time on it. It would be beneficial to the county if we adopted this. Here's number one. Here's what it means. Here's why we need it. Here's number two. Here's what it means. Here's why we need it. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you? I mean, instead of just accusing us of not caring for what you're sending, and do you not think we would benefit from that if we had that?
And I'll be glad to do that. I happen to
And that's going to have to be in a future meeting then.
Oh my goodness.
And so,
Oh my goodness.
and so, yeah.
And also,
And I don't want us to engage here. I just want to, you had your say, and so.
I know, you do that to me, Wendell.
And I'm sorry about that, sir.
Yeah, I know.
But, now, the statement, I'm gonna go back to my statement that offended you so. That statement did not say that there weren't other bad actors involved in this situation. It just does not say that. And I am unable, just like Mr. Hudson writes in his letters to us, and he uses lawyer language like, it appears that, or apparently that. But the three people that you named they are private citizens. And I don't know what role they played. And so, I'm sorry about that, but I don't know exactly what they did. But the things that I said about the person who was in charge of the office, is that not her responsibility to protect the security of the office? It is. Okay, and so I'm just gonna leave that right there. That concludes my comments.
I know this is going to be a little bit out of order, so I'll ask Ben if I'm going to step too far off the ledge here. Tabitha appeared to have a question for me, and Tabitha's usually very brief and very respectful of time, so would it be okay for me to ask her what her question was instead of waiting for the meeting?
Yes, sir, if the chairman's willing, I think that's appropriate.
It's out of order, but I'll allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The only question I had was you were asking about, information, and the only thing I was saying is that you guys maybe need to get with Attorney Tony Riles to get all the information, so you won't be left out of the loop of what's going on, because it's on, the attorney has it. In discovery, you share that information going through a lawsuit. And so that information is there. Tony Riles should have shared it with you all, especially when people are talking to y'all. He's sitting back, and you all should have that information at hand to make an educated decision on what's going on for the board and for the county. And so if you just get with Tony Riles to get what some other people are seeing, because if we have it, you should have it. You definitely should have it before we have it, to make an educated decision on what's going on. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional board comments? Additional board comments? Okay, and so we have amended the agenda to enter into executive session. So we need a motion to enter into executive session. Do we have to close this session?
What you do is you have a motion to enter into executive session. Once that passes, then we go into executive session, and then we'll vote to adjourn it once the executive session concludes, and then come back.
Okay, so we're going to we need a motion to enter executive session now. All right, motion to enter executive session for purposes of personnel. All right, motion, Andy. Is there a second? Second, Matthew. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Are there any opposed? There's no opposed. Okay, and so we're going to enter into executive session for, I hope, just a very short amount of time, and then we are going to return back. And so will you accompany us into executive session? All right. And so we're coming right out.
Yes, can I get it?
You work at the middle school?
No, ma'am, ninth grade freshman.
The purpose of our executive session is personnel. And I'm sorry to read you this letter, but I'm going to read you this letter, and it is from Richard Roberts. It is dated as of the 10th day of July. Dear Mr. Stone and board members, please accept this letter as my formal resignation from my position as election supervisor for Coffee County, effective 3 weeks from today. My last day will be July 28, 2023. I appreciate the opportunities for growth and development you have provided during my tenure. Thank you for your repeated guidance and support. Please let me know I can be of help during the transition period. I wish you and the county the very best going forward. And so that is Ms. Rachel's resignation, and I'm not going to ask her up here one more time not to go, but we, as Larry, he said not let her go. I believe he said not let her go. Well, why? Because she's a very good elections person. She gets along well with the public. She gets along well with us. She's a good person, but things happen and people move on. You know that, and those of us who work with staffs, we know that. And so, Rachel, thank you for everything that you've done, and we are going to wish you Godspeed and the best for your life. All right? Yes, sir. And so, I mean, you have anything you want to say?
No, sir.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
And I've not discussed with, may I ask Rachel a quick question?
the chair recognizes them.
Thank you, sir. Rachel and I have not discussed this in the executive session or anything else, but just because it was addressed that we've been through multiple supervisors in the last few years, is there anything we could have done differently as a board to get you to stay here in Coffee County that was within our power, our control? And I'm asking you that sincerely.
Right. No, sir, y'all are a great team to work with. Just God has laid this on my plate as another adventure to take, so I'm picking it up and going with it.
And I would like to second what Wendell and Larry said, that we wish you wouldn't go. We enjoyed working with you. You've done a great job. And yeah, if there was something different, we would ask you to be candid, and or something we could have done differently. Please let us know, because we don't want to have to continue to go through more supervisors here. So.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now, so, Ms. Christie, stand up, please. And I don't know if you know Ms. Christie Neffer, but she is our Assistant Elections Director. And so there is a policy within the county which allows promotion from within. And so this was actually, I mean, when you work with people, you always have to have a plan for what's going to happen, what may happen. And so this is the plan that is following through and is taking place, and this is to move Ms. Christie into election supervisor. And so, Ms. Christie, if you're approved by this board in about 30 seconds, will you accept the job as election supervisor for Coffee County?
Yes.
Okay, and so board members, if we could please, would someone
Motion to
motion?
accept Christie as the new supervisor of elections.
Motion to accept Christie, Matthew, second Andy. Who's keeping the notes? I was going to say, she didn't already get in her car, did she? Okay, and so now, it's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Are there any opposed? There are no opposed. The motion carries. Welcome to Coffee County. I know you're already in Coffee County. Welcome to, that's what I used to say to teachers. So, we look forward to working with you as well. And now, who was it that said we need to get somebody smart? Mr. Hudson? Mr. Hudson, did you say we need to get somebody smart? Whenever okay, she's smart.
Yeah.
She's smart. She's a good person to work with. She has many of the same qualities that Rachel has. I look forward to a smooth transition. And we're going to look after the elections and take care of everything just the way we're supposed to. But now, Christie, now this is just like a pre-test, like who's supposed to be able to get behind the counter?
Nobody.
There you go. All right, sit down right there. All right, and so all right, so welcome to Coffee County, Christie, and now we need.
Remember to let them know that Christie's position is going to be posted.
And that is correct. Yes, Christie's position will be posted for a period of, you said at least in 2 papers, didn't you? And it'll run for 2 weeks. Okay, so, yes. And if you're interested in applying for that, then the requirements are a high school diploma, and you gotta be 18 years old. Is that right?
And on at least 25 hours.
Okay, now.
Election experience
And election experience preferred.
And so there were at least 1 or 2 board members that wanted to make additional comments, I think, as well. And so, didn't we decide that? Andy? Okay, any additional comments that anyone would like to make? Anything? All right, and so at this time, then consideration to adjourn. All right, Ms. Ernestine, adjourned, second by Ms. Paul. And so, all in favor? Any opposed? Opposed, okay, motion carries. And so at this time, we're just going to have our closing prayer, and if you will, please join me in a quick prayer to close our meeting. And that is in our bylaws, and so we do that at each meeting. We open and close our meeting with prayer. So, Father, Lord, we thank you for the blessings of life. Father, we thank you for the gift of this beautiful day. Father, we thank you for your love and your grace, your goodness and your mercy. And Father, we feel your presence in our meeting. And Father, we thank you for the understanding and the information that has been brought today to the community and to the staff. Lord, we ask that you intervene in our lives, and just as the psalmist said, you teach us every day, Lord, to walk humbly with you. In Jesus' beautiful name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Maybe you would.
Yeah, you can see it. Andy's a little over
YouTube, I do for my little grandson.
He'll be there. I mean, is there, once you get there, it just gets,
All right, now take case. This is the Get To Free Press. I'm George Buster Rhymes out of Valdosta, Georgia. And I find myself in Douglas and Coffee County this morning. They had a Board of Elections meeting, and I found two strangers over here today. But they're always on point. So what's your name?
Catherine Grant.
What's your name?
Kanisha Jones.
Who are you with?
Neat. Black Voters Matter.
All right. Who are you with?
Safe to Thrive, but we're a partner of Black Voters Matter.
All right. I came over here because I was asked to be here today. I wish that other people had called me. I didn't know it had gotten this hot over here in terms of meetings being held. I would have been here, but I'm going to put this priority one. So I would just want you to briefly explain what took place today and why did you do that presentation before the people here in Douglas and Coffee County today.
So we have been attending the Board of Elections meetings regularly, and the importance of that is that there has been no accountability in the Board of Elections itself and how they are working with a continuing security issue that was never fully investigated. Actually, 3 breaches of the election system here in Coffee County that took place. The first one starting on January 7th, which was the day after the insurrection at the Capitol. And also in following up day to day with what news is happening nationally. So we know that there are investigations happening at the federal level with Special Counsel Jack Smith, and also at the state level with Fani Willis. And we believe that the investigations and indictments will be forthcoming.
The state of Georgia and South Georgia in particular are now in the eyes of the federal government and the national level, and if not the international level. And so when I look at MSNBC, NBC, CBS, Dateline, Nightline, out of Atlanta, 11 Alive Election Action News, they all seem to be focused on Coffee County, Georgia. And so have been and recorded in the Board of Elections here when Misty was the supervisor.
Oh my.
And so when you look back over the annals of this place and what OIVIA Coley Pearson have been through.
Yeah, that's right.
Will you say that you believe that something took place that was wrong?
I don't think there's any question about what happened was wrong. What is lingering and where we need the community support is in holding the folks accountable that walked into the Board of Elections on 3 different occasions in 2021, had access to voter files and the state election software, and copied it. We don't know at this point. We have no indication of any of the persons involved in that being held accountable. There have been no indictments at all.
Now, how long has it been? Approximately how long has it been? I heard, I think, one commissioner here talking about the length of time that have elapsed with no, as you say, no accountability. What do you think about that? Or do you think anybody was going to pursue this, or they was hoping possibly that it's just going to blow into the wind and be ignored? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that that is the central question. And I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is how important public involvement is, and for everyone who's able to attend the Board of Elections meetings and learn about what happened, but more importantly, learn about the functioning of the Board of Elections systems here in Coffee County today, so that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. We really need the public's engagement and oversight in this process as well.
Okay, I have 2 final questions. One is, who was the gentleman that spoke today, and what organization or what does he represent? Because he spoke so eloquently on the issues. Who was he? What do you know about him?
That's Mr. Jim Hudson, who has been in Coffee County since the late 80s and has lived here and practiced law here. He is here as a concerned citizen. He's not with any formal organization. He's a retired attorney. He's not practicing now, but was so concerned about what he learned that he wanted to dig deeper, and has been very instrumental in bringing to light the group of people that appeared to be at the center of this, and also in giving advice on how we can improve or fix the system. But one of the things that I just wanted to touch on quickly is, in contrast to what happened to Mayor Pro Tem OIVIA Pearson Cooley, who was arrested for allegedly doing something that she was later fully exonerated for, and that happened literally on the spot. For that to happen to her, and 2.5 years later, we have no accountability for the people who allowed this group to come in and essentially copy the state voter files is unconscionable.
Are you surprised at the lack of what I think possibly should have been more local news media coverage at this high profile meeting?
Yes, but I think that that's one of the reasons why, one reason among many reasons why this kind of thing happened in Coffee County, because we have limited access to statewide or national media, and we're sort of in a little sort of zone where the only media that we can access is local media, and oftentimes local media are pressured politically not to report on certain things. So it is disappointing, but it's not surprising, and this is something we see all over South Georgia.
Okay, this is the last question I'm going to ask. I probably asked you before. What makes you do what you do? What makes you be where you be?
Neighborhood she wrote.
And why you just don't quit?
Neighborhood she wrote.
Because our vote, access to the ballot box, has come at a high price, number one, and still does, and is the core of our form of self-governance. So anything that threatens that is a threat to our way of life, our freedoms, and that's why.
Hey, what's your name once again?
Catherine Grant.
And what's your name?
Kanisha Jones.
And who are you with?
Black Voters Matter.
Safe to Thrive, Black Voters Matter.
Thank you very much. This is the Get to Free Press. I'm George Buster Rhymes, and we report what others ignore about our...
That part.
The night where he's in Judah asleep. I wonder who will wake him, bring him to his feet. Speak now or forever hold